Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Live One for One, where we have conversations that challenge us to live a life that will change a life. My name's John, and I have an amazing lady in the house, Ella Ba'ami. She is a absolute rock star. Bella, I had the privilege of being with you at a event, large networking event, high level leaders that were all in this place. I mean, people that have been in the DCS space for years, government officials, everybody in there had pretty high credentials. I remember thinking, as somebody who is communicating regularly and freaks out when I have to communicate regularly in front of these high credentialed people, here's a girl who, what, 18, 19?
I was 18. I
18 at the time? Okay.
January.
Gotcha. And just crushed it. I mean, you broke down the foster care system. You brought clarity. You brought a sense of storytelling, a sense of urgency to a space that is desperately hurting. And I think everybody in the room was challenged, even though they've been in this space or part of it in some capacity. Everybody was challenged in there, and I ran up to you and was like, "We got to connect," you know. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Ella Ba'ami. I'm 19. I will be a freshman, sophomore, kind of with my credits.
Yeah.
In college next year, which is really exciting. I aged out of foster care when I turned 18. I was not in the system as long as a lot of other people. I was there for a little over 2 years.
Okay.
And yeah, I want to be an advocate in anytime I see something that's like wrong or something that needs to be fixed. My goal in life is to be the person who points that out instead and looks for solutions.
Yeah.
Instead of just kind of like ignoring the problem.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of people who have heard about foster care. I've heard many people say foster care can kind of just be this thing that you know about.
Yes.
And then there you have another perspective of people who are in the space that want to do something to help because they maybe were at a conference, or maybe they had a friend who started to foster and they just saw what they were journeying through, what the kiddos were journeying through. But we don't get to hear a lot about foster care from someone like your perspective.
Yes.
Just to be able to unpack it. I've been around foster care my entire life. My wife and I have fostered kiddos. I come from a foster and adoptive family where my mom and dad adopted many kids that came in through our home. But again, never been a foster kiddo, never have to age out. Can you kind of walk us through just that lifestyle? Like, what are, 8,000 kids in DCS custody? Like, what, 900 aging out? What are they going through?
So to be a foster kid is kind of to be in a perpetual state of free fall. Like it feels like you are always in fight or flight because it's made very clear to you that you don't get to make mistakes in the same way that a normal kid does.
Yeah.
So let's face facts, especially like as a teenager in foster care. I was far from perfect. Sure. I did, and I still do because I'm 19. So I'm still
absolutely
young-ish. And sometimes you do dumb things.
Yeah.
And the difficult part about being a foster kid is the understanding that if you get caught doing something dumb, like you're not going to get grounded like your friend would. You're going to get your placement disrupted. You're going to get put into another home. And that's only if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, you're not going to end up in another home. You're going to end up in a facility, or you're going to end up in another county where you don't know anyone. And it can happen overnight. It's just like, so it's walking on eggshells as a teenager, which is like a notoriously difficult time to be alive. It's just like being a teenager, being in high school. And it's really difficult because it just feels like you don't have the room to like make mistakes, to figure out who you are. You have to be perfect. And then aging out is its own terrifying experience. And something I've been reflecting on is also just like what time of year a student ages out. Are you aging out? Because some people are old for their, or it's old or young for their grade. So if you're aging out and you're about to enter college,
Mhm.
if you get into college, which is a whole other thing,
Yeah.
you have housing in a dorm. I aged out halfway through my senior year of high school,
Okay.
meaning that when I aged out, I had to start paying rent halfway through my senior year, which meant
Wow.
that I couldn't work during the days because I would become truant. And one thing about me is that I'm going to get my education.
Right.
So I started working 4 a.m. to 7 a.m., getting dressed at the store that I was working at
Wow.
for school, and then going to school and going back to my store and working until 10 o'clock to close it, and then going to bed because I couldn't get enough hours to pay my rent
Wow.
being in high school. And so aging out, it's just, I mean, it's terrifying, and you have to have a lot of like, it doesn't matter how much drive and like work ethic you have, those things are
Yeah.
really important, but you also have to just have luck. You have to have luck, and you have to have 6 different backup plans because
Yeah.
things just go wrong. You know, EFC, for anybody who's listening and doesn't know what that is, there are benefits that kids who age out of foster care are eligible for.
Mhm.
And so that includes a stipend, health
Yes.
insurance, a few other things. My stipend, I did not receive it until a year after I aged out of foster care.
Wow.
So that meant that that entire year I was working to pay my rent, and I also was dipping into my savings because I had thought about the fact that, like, nothing's gone right
Yeah.
while I'm in custody.
Sure, sure.
How's it gonna go right when I age out? So I had saved
Right.
enough just in case I had to rely on that. And for a time I did have to. So it was just like aging out is just it's incredibly difficult because no matter how hard you try to prepare for being an adult, it's
Yeah.
just like nobody's prepared. People with
Right.
parents aren't
Right.
prepared, but the
Oh, for
difference
sure.
is you can call your parents and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, how do I like do the car insurance thing?" Or
Right,
like, "How do
right.
I fix my sink
Yeah.
that's leaking or fix my air conditioning in my car?" Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
The one thing that you said that was I was trying not to tear up while you were talking. I was like, hold it together, John. Because your stories that you're communicating, I've seen so many of those stories come through our nonprofit, and it's heartbreaking. And I can see faces while you're talking. And, you know, to hear that you're 18, or even while you're in foster care up through 18, you're walking on eggshells. You don't have the ability to make the mistakes that other teenagers have the ability to make. I've seen that firsthand happen at the Bridge House, where we've had many kids that have come in because of disruptions, something as simple as they weren't supposed to have a cell phone and they brought a cell phone home,
right.
or maybe there was just a not a great relationship with one of their other siblings, and so the sibling didn't want them, or excuse me, not their sibling, but one of the bio
The bio
kiddo
kids.
that
Yes.
the family had didn't get along with the kiddo that they had in their house, so there was a disruption. That's how do you deal with that pressure? I mean, because every family's going to have. Because how many? Do you mind asking me asking you how many different foster homes you were in?
So I was in 2 traditional foster homes,
Okay.
but I was in 4 different placements because
Oh wow.
I don't know if you're familiar with like how DCS will also place kids. They'll use hospital beds and place them when there's no
Yeah.
so
Do they still do that?
yes.
Okay.
Vanderbilt is suing them though, so I don't know how much
Oh
longer they'll
wow.
do that. But then the other thing
Okay.
that they used to do, they don't do this anymore, is they would keep us in the DCS office and
Right.
we would
Right.
sleep there.
Yeah.
So that happened for a time. But and then I also was at a kinship placement temporarily, but it couldn't work out just because so I don't count that one, but I was there for like 3 months.
Okay.
Um so
So 4 to 5 different placements
yes.
that you had.
And that was only in a 2-year span.
In a
So
2-year
imagine
span.
like kids who are in for like
Yeah.
we yesterday at a meeting I was at, we heard from somebody who's in foster care from ages 5 to 17.
Wow.
Like imagine how many homes they're going through. But what that's like, how you deal with that is, I mean, I guess it manifests differently for different people. For me, I had like very severe like anxiety,
Oh
obviously.
sure.
Um, but it was just like you can't stop yourself from making mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just that
Right.
you become like unfortunately I became very sneaky
Yeah.
because I was like scared but it was just like every time and I am starting to I have a much better relationship with my foster parent than I did when I was in custody.
Mhm.
But like realistically when I was in custody every time I got a text from her I was scared that I like, before I read it like, I
Right.
got scared.
Right. What's going to happen?
Or, like, if she
Yeah.
texted me, "Call me," I'm like, "Oh my god," like, I should go pack my things.
Wow.
And it's just, like, because also I'm trying to be a high schooler. Like, I'm
Right.
trying to focus on school.
Yeah.
I took a lot of AP credits,
Right.
so I'm trying to work on that. I'm trying to be normal, but it's really also difficult to relate to my peers
Yeah.
when, like, I literally don't know if I'll be moved to Chattanooga the next
Yeah.
day. Like, because my caseworkers had said that to me. They were like, "If
Sure.
you lose this placement, you're going to Knoxville. You lose this, you're going to Chattanooga."
Okay.
And it's like, that would be devastating for me.
Sure.
But I think it manifests the anxiety
Yeah.
manifests differently for a lot of kids, but the one thing that's in common is, like, I think at the talk I did,
Mhm.
I brought up Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm.
And at the bottom, the very, like, base before you can climb, it's basic necessities, including shelter.
Yes.
And so if your shelter is constantly hanging over your head, you don't have the opportunity to self-actualize. You don't have the opportunity to figure out what your interests are because you are literally in caveman brain.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Right.
like actually in caveman brain. And so like for me, I became very controlling over, like, myself.
Mhm.
Like, I developed for a while, I had, like, a pretty severe eating disorder because I couldn't control anything
Mm.
in my life, so
Yeah.
I controlled my food intake.
Yeah.
And, because that was literally the only sense of control I had, but other
Sure.
kids, like, unfortunately will turn to substance abuse or
Right.
turn to, like, because we are so stressed
Mhm.
and, like, our brains are still developing, like, we're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
equipped to handle that
Sure.
stress.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't deal with it well,
Yeah.
but I, like, survived it.
Sure. Well, would you say that you're a little bit abnormal in the sense of your drive versus other maybe kids that have gone through this? Because you can tell that you're naturally a leader, you're
Mhm.
naturally a striver. I bet you're somebody who wakes up and you're what am I trying to get done? Because I don't know
Yes.
that there's a lot of kids that I know, even that come from great homes, who have the drive that you do at your age, especially with what you've been through. Like you've
Thank
accomplished
you.
so much for what you've been through, and you've accomplished more than I know kids that have been in great homes and their whole
Yeah.
life, and they don't have that drive. But you have. Where does that come from? That
So,
drive?
I honestly I have always been like this, and that's the point I was gonna make is, like, I would say that I'm abnormal, but not necessarily for foster kids. Like, I think it's pretty much just, like, the general, like, population. I don't know
Mm.
why I am. I'm kind of, if you know me, I'm always at 100. Like, I care a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah.
I care a lot about people,
Mm.
and if I see something wrong, like,
Yeah,
I'm not just the person who's gonna, like, yell about it.
yeah,
I'm gonna look at how we fix it,
yeah.
because I believe
It's good.
yeah, I do believe that people have the power to change things. I think that it can be overwhelming sometimes how much, like, hurt there is in the world,
Yeah.
but, I think that we need to not, like, mistake being overwhelmed for being unable to act or do
Mm.
something. Um, but I don't know where it comes from, but it served me very well
Yeah.
when I was in custody because if my caseworker wasn't doing something, I would just do it for myself.
Wow.
The issue with that was that there were some things that I literally just could not do for myself. And the other kind of, like, roadblock I ran into was that I can't do something for myself if I don't know that I'm supposed to do it. Like,
Right. Right.
you can't ask a question that you don't, like, know, or you,
No to
yeah,
ask.
know to
Right.
ask.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, so, like, in custody, when I aged out, they didn't give me my birth certificate, my social security number, health insurance, anything.
Is that normal?
By DCS policy, they're supposed to give it. I
Right.
don't know if it's normal. I've met a few other kids who had the same experience,
Okay.
but literally the week after I aged out, 2 weeks. The 2 weeks after I aged out were probably the most stressful,
Hmm.
some of the most stressful of my life
Yeah.
because I, needed housing, but you need to be able to prove that you are a human being and
Right.
go through a background check,
Right.
and I did not have anything to prove I existed, and so I remember sitting in my AP Econ class just, like, in the corner, not paying attention because I was applying for housing and I was, like, going back and forth with my like future landlord about like what we were gonna do. And I was just like crying because I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be homeless. Like, how am I gonna graduate high school? And it was just like, even, and that's what I do want people to hear is that I was able to overcome this
Mhm.
stuff, but I want them to know that the people who don't, it's not because they don't have this drive that I do. The drive was helpful, but quite literally, I got lucky.
Mm,
Like, and I've worked incredibly hard to get here, but a lot of this was like my landlord, I didn't get my documents in time.
mm.
My landlord waived the requirement
Which
until
is
I could get
super
them.
rare.
Right, but
Yeah.
it's like that was not that I was resourceful and I figured it out.
Gotcha.
I literally got lucky.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important for us to start thinking about what it's like for kids aging out and how we can fix those things, because that's not going to happen every time.
Yeah.
Even my landlord, like, he can't waive it for every single kid,
Right. Right.
you know? So I
Yeah.
do
That's
want
a
people
really
to hear
great
that.
point. Yeah. I love that. Walk me through a little bit about when you are somebody that's in this space and what do you see? You know, we were just looking at I think there was a lawsuit that a group of kids that were in foster care are filing right now. I think they're still in foster care against the department. And you know, I know a lot of great people in the department, and I think that's the tension. That's the hard
Yes.
part, is I'm sure you do too. I'm sure you know many people who are doing a great job, overworked, trying to do the things that they need to be doing, but it's just a very tough space.
Yes.
Can you kind of speak to um, what would you recommend to change? Like when you look at, I know we sat down immediately because there's a lady on our team who's our director of ops. She's been a foster parent of like 20 kids. She's been in the space. She sits on various different action boards. Smart lady, very passionate about the space. She listed off, hey, if I had to change the space with kids coming into foster care and what they experience, I mean, here's where I first start. Boom, boom, boom. Like
Yes.
what? Put that out over to you. What are like your red flag things that you see that like these got to change?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not rocket science. It's like these are so obvious that you see.
Yes. I think as far as I'll start with the lawsuit. As far
Yeah.
as that goes, I do agree with you that it's difficult because I believe that there are people who work for DCS who are well intentioned, who do good work.
Yeah.
I think that the lawsuit will do good because the lawsuit started after the federal oversight of DCS stopped
Hmm.
and things went downhill from there. And I think what it's pointing out is the fact that, like, due to the fact that we're under resourced, like, terrible things happen to these kids. Like, the fact that I and other children were forced to sleep on the floor of a DCS office because we didn't have any, like, other options is like, that's a human rights violation. Like, the
Sure.
way that they had so many kids in a room.
Right.
And so it's not about these individual caseworkers. It's more about like the higher ups.
Hmm.
But what needs to change really is we need to stop complaining about the lack of resources and go out and lobby for those resources. Because if my headlight is out in my
Hmm.
car
Yeah.
and I'm aware that it's out and I choose not to fix it
Right.
and I just say, dang, my headlight's out, it's really hard to see the road. If I then crash
Right.
because I couldn't see the road,
Sure.
I'm going to be at fault. That's
Right.
my fault. We can't keep, like, if I don't go and get it fixed.
Yeah.
And so we've identified DCS as under resourced. We've been able to identify that for a decade.
Hmm.
And we haven't organized to get more resources. And we need to do that.
Hmm.
Like, point blank, that needs to happen. And then as far as issues for kids in custody,
Hmm.
I think some of the main issues lie for like kids who are higher needs in
Sure.
facilities. And
Right.
I put higher needs in like quotes because I mean, you can end up in a facility if you just have anxiety and you
Yeah.
can't get a placement.
Yes.
And the issue is these private facilities get away. I mean, have you seen some of the reports that came out about, like, I don't know if I can name drop, but like
Yeah.
Wayne Halfway House. Like, have you seen?
We'll just bleep it out if we
Yeah.
can.
Okay. But like, I mean, pepper spraying disabled children. I have a friend who lived
Gosh.
who
This is
was
in
in
Tennessee.
yes,
Okay.
who was in Wayne Halfway House, and they like as punishment they made him ask for toilet paper in front of people, like in front of a group of children
My
to punish
gosh.
him, like kids being put in solitary confinement for over a week. And it's like that is not due to a lack of resources. That is because you are scared of losing Wayne Halfway House as a placement, and you don't want to. I mean, like yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And so some of the issues that I'm seeing are just like kids in those facilities, and this is something my bill is going to hopefully fix. They would have their contact with people on the outside restricted as punishment.
Mhm.
So imagine how easy that is if somebody is abusing them
Right.
to say, "Well, you were bad, so you can't call your caseworker."
Right.
Um, and I think there needs to be more oversight um for the places that we're putting these kids. And then as far as foster home retainment, we need to have trainings for foster parents that just name the fact that when you were a teenager, you
Mhm.
were kind of awful too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, really.
like,
There
um,
seems like there's a lack of awareness, I think, when a lot of people go through foster classes, foster parenting classes. There's been a couple of times where we've had people that come out, and one of the director of ops that I was telling you about, Jennifer Gallagher, she actually has a list of questions that she has formatted over
mhm,
the course of X amount of years of fostering, where she resources other foster parents that are just getting into the space to just make sure that they're asking questions, not to probe about what kid's the right fit or something like that, but really more just trying to understand fully what are the needs of the child that's coming in so
yes.
that they can be best serving to them. And
Yeah.
if they haven't asked those questions, I mean, I can't imagine what would have that looked like, and
Yes.
led to probably more disruptions in foster homes. Like, what is it? 50% of foster families disrupt after their first.
It's something crazy. And
Yeah.
yes, I think so. My foster mom was not given my history
Okay.
because they were so desperate to place me. And she actually openly admitted that she probably wouldn't have taken me if she had it,
You're like,
which is
thanks.
like so
That's good to know.
it's like 50-50, but
Yeah.
it's like realistically, like I do believe that foster parents should have that context. And then
Sure.
a child should have the ability to explain that because
Yeah.
like labels aren't everything, but it's also important for a foster family to understand like so that things aren't surprising to them. So
Yeah.
it's not surprising to you when I stop eating because I'm stressed out, like stuff
Right.
like
Right.
that. Um and yeah, but I do think I was in a meeting about like transition, like youth in transition yesterday. And something that someone at DCS had brought up is like doing something with new foster parents where it's like, okay, everyone close your eyes and
Mhm.
stand up. Sit down if you've done this thing. If you've done this thing. Like dumb, stupid teenager things that are like
Yeah.
whatever. And
Right.
just like having you name the fact that like you weren't a perfect teenager because
Right.
nobody is.
Right. Right.
And so I do think that's something else. It's just like having foster parents kind of reflect on like how they were as a kid. Like
Yes.
I have a 7-year-old foster sister who is like a joy, but also has temper tantrums because she's 7.
Yeah.
She's 7 and she's
Right.
dealing with foster care.
Sure.
And that's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And no child is perfect, but then also just acknowledging the fact that these children foster care is inherently traumatic. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how you got into foster care, like it's an inherently traumatic experience.
Yes.
And so understanding that not only would a kid who doesn't have that trauma be like they would not be perfect,
Yeah.
this kid also has all this trauma to
Yeah.
unpack.
Right.
Um so I would say that those are some of the things. And I do think that there are a lot of people who are trying really hard to do
Yeah.
good work. And I
Sure.
don't ever want that to be overshadowed because like I am definitely a vocal, I wouldn't say critic, but like I look to change things, which
Yeah.
insinuates that there's something wrong
Yeah.
that needs to
Absolutely.
be changed. And I never want the good work that is being done to be overshadowed by that. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those things where we can hold two truths.
Yeah.
There's truth in that lawsuit.
Hmm.
There's also truth in the fact that DCS is under resourced and caseworkers can't fight for more resources. That's not their job.
Right.
They're fighting for us. So it's got to be able to like hold both things.
Yeah. Walk me through, and I love your perspective on that because I share that same perspective. I really do. Like, it doesn't help if you are just communicating the problem all the time,
Mhm.
but you're never trying to work towards solution. I mean, we see that in the
Absolutely.
news all the time where it's just blasting, blasting, blasting. And that doesn't actually really help in a lot of ways when it comes to the fact, like, think of caseworker retention. I know if I'm a caseworker and I'm basically looked at as a public enemy
Yeah.
because the news constantly blasts me,
Yes.
that's hard to
No,
say that I want to
100%. When you're
how
getting
does
paid
yeah,
terribly, you have
how
a
does
high
that help
caseload.
how does that help recruit more caseworkers when
Right.
everyone thinks
It
caseworkers are
doesn't.
terrible? It doesn't, you know?
And so it's one of those things of like, for me, if I'm identifying a problem, I identify that problem in the same space, like the same sentence
Yeah,
as I talk about the solution.
right.
Like that's just I think I think we need to look at doing that more in just like all spaces, whether it's
Yeah,
foster care, politics, whatever. It's just like if fine, fine. If you want to go and blast people,
right.
do it with a solution. Like,
Yes.
hey, you're doing this terrible thing. Here's what you should do instead.
Yeah,
Instead of just like you're terrible, you're all,
yeah, yeah.
and like I do the one thing is like the further I get away from my time in custody, I do have to bring myself back to the fact that it's like my frustration when I was in foster care was the fact that it's like I understand that caseworkers are doing the best with what they have,
Mhm.
but then it's also just like when I was in foster care, the feeling is like, okay, but like the best isn't good enough, and I am the one who's in foster
Yeah,
care,
yeah.
and like I'm
There
treading
yeah.
water, and I felt like there was a lot of just like excuses being made where it's just like, well, this is the best they can do. And it's like,
Mhm,
okay, so I'm in foster care, I'm in fight or flight. Like, I can't protect myself because I'm not 18. I don't have the same
mhm,
rights as an adult does. And so that is one thing. Like, I do try to, like, again, hold two things at the same time,
mhm.
but also just like, I have to remember that it's like, I'm going to side with these kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
You have to. I mean, we always say this at our organization too, what's in the best interest of the child. Every time we make a
yes,
decision, it's not for anything other than what's the best for them, you know?
absolutely.
And s I think you have to look at it that way because these are when especially when I look at my own kids, like,
Yeah.
I see my own kids and I think of what they're capable of doing, what they're not capable of doing, the amount of emotional support that they need at a very young age, and what that would look like for them if they were one phone call away from being disrupted and going to another location.
Right.
And I saw it firsthand even as a CASA worker too. I'm a CASA worker as well. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a court appointed special advocate and you're assigned a case to advocate for the child, which is one of the reasons why I love being a CASA worker. Because my goal is just to fully advocate for the child, just to be there for them, to
Yeah.
hear how's your placement? Are you being treated with respect? Are you enjoying where you're at? Do you like it here? You know, where do you want to go? What are your short term goals, your long term goals? And just kind of being able to work with them has been great. And I've had this same CASA case for, gosh, since what, 4 years. And this young lady that came in, she transitioned into one, two, three, four, five different places. Amazing young lady.
Yeah.
I mean, just the sweetest girl ever. She was 10 when she came in. She's 15 now. The sweetest ever. Multiple failed adoptions, and now she's finally in a place where she's being adopted. A great, great family, and it just worked out so well for her. But I keep thinking to myself, this is like one out of 8,000 kids' stories. And like you said, you talked about luck. You know, not all of them do get that.
Yeah.
Hey, it turned out great. You know, they get 18 and the landlord said, no, I do need all your documents and
And I
tough
can't help
cookies.
you.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like housing out in this area is getting better.
Oh,
And
absolutely
so,
not. Or more affordable. And one of the issues that I hope this is not going to be an issue much longer, but like when you're transitioning out of custody, you make a transition plan. And so one of the things on the plan is where you're going to go. And sorry, this is very upsetting to me. Um if you don't have anywhere to go, they put the mission, the Nashville Rescue Mission,
mm,
which is the homeless shelter. And so that's where you'll go if you don't have a placement figured out. And like they will use that as a viable placement option for kids who are aging out.
Wow.
which is just like, I mean,
Right.
it's just insane to me. But honestly, the story of that person is just like, when you think about, like, she's the sweetest girl,
Mhm.
and it's like, just like the fact she went through 5 homes.
Mhm.
It's like, it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter, like, whatever. There's this awareness that, like, you're replaceable.
Mhm.
Um, and it is difficult because I love the bio kid at the foster home that I was last at. I
Mhm.
adore him. He is such a sweet kid, but, like, there were times where, like, I was in the foster home and I, like, resented him because it's like, if I get in trouble,
Mhm.
I'm out the house, and then
Right.
you do these crazy things,
Right.
and it's like,
Yeah, nobody
whatever,
notices.
it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
So, yeah, but,
That's a very real parallel there
yeah,
about what you would need to do and what they would need to have to worry about to be able to have consistency.
yeah.
That's I don't even know how somebody can live like that.
I mean, even it became an issue with my best friend where it's like, she did the same stupid thing as I did, and I got kicked out of my foster home for
Mhm.
doing it with her, and her parents didn't even ground her.
Wow.
But it's just like, so it's I got over it because it's also not her fault that,
Yeah.
like, she has a decent normal life.
Sure, sure.
Um, but, that is something that is just like, also, it makes it so hard to fit in as a
Mhm.
foster kid because it's just like, all these kids, like, I would see them do crazy things in class. I would see them get terrible grades. I'd see, like, all that. And I just didn't have the ability to do that.
Right.
Or, I mean, I did. I have free will, but the
Sure, sure.
consequences
Oh,
would
yeah.
be
Right,
immense. Like,
right.
and I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, that's good. You mentioned one thing too, and I want to turn a corner here in a minute and just kind of talk a little bit about your future and what you're looking to do. Um, you mentioned that DCS is under resourced now. DCS is a multi-billion-dollar
mhm.
budget. How are they under resourced? Like when you have, is it that they need more money? Is it that they do you feel like they're just not utilizing it appropriately? Like, what are because
So
if you
I
have a
have a few
multi-billion,
hot takes.
sure, I'd love to hear because I think that
Yeah.
people think about that. Like when they like if you know that you maybe have I don't know like a few mil that's your budget for all the kids that are in foster care. Of course, you're like, oh wow,
Yeah, that's
that's gonna.
crazy.
I mean, there's no way you're gonna be able to have the payroll that you need to take care of these caseworkers, and obviously anyone would say that that's very under budgeted. But when you look at like a multi-billion-dollar budget,
Yes.
how are they under resourced?
So, at least what they've said is
Sure.
that they need more money.
Okay.
And you know what? Like, when you look at what caseworkers are paid,
Sure.
it's not very much. And they do have pretty high caseloads each year. More kids are entering foster care,
Hmm.
not less.
Right.
More DCS reports are being made, not less.
Hmm.
And so I do think more money for caseworkers is
Hmm.
helpful.
Yeah.
But then that also means that in an ideal world,
Right.
they
Yeah.
get all the money that they need.
Yeah.
Then that means that money has to go to people who actually do a good job.
Hmm.
My FSWs, which were like the
Can you
like,
tell us what FSW is?
so it's a foster social worker. So
Okay.
that's like after the like CPS case,
Hmm.
which is the protective services, you're in foster care. That's like the boots on the ground person. That's the person you have most of your visits with.
Hmm.
I had trying to think of it. No, I had one good one. And then the other ones, I legitimately never heard from. And I
Wow.
understand that you're overworked, but it's like you can't be overworked if you don't do your job.
Yeah.
So Haven was my good one. She was incredible.
Shout out
She
to Haven.
Yeah, shout out Haven. Love you so much.
That's
Um
awesome.
but she would visit me. She did the monthly visits. She wasn't
Mhm.
able to do much more than that because of how many kids she had, but she
Sure.
showed up for all of her kids.
Wow.
She was on time. It honestly sometimes was annoying to me because I like was used to caseworkers canceling visits, so I'd just make plans.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then Haven was like, "No, I'm actually
Yeah, I'm gonna
coming."
be
And
there.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. Or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I had to do paperwork
That's
and
funny.
stuff. So it was annoying, but it's also like she did her job.
Yeah.
I would be happy if she got like a pay raise.
Mhm.
She deserves that because she does
Mhm.
her job. And was she overworked? Absolutely. But she actually tried. And there are plenty of people like Haven. The current FSW that's assigned to my foster siblings is amazing. I was at my one of my foster sisters is moving into 2nd grade, and I was at her award ceremony. The FSW was there, you know?
Yeah.
So there's people like that in the
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
They deserve more resources, and they deserve a lower caseload.
Yeah.
What my fear would be is that there would be more money and we would have more caseworkers, which is what we need.
Mhm.
We need lower caseloads for these caseworkers.
Yeah.
And we also need to be able to mitigate burnout. So more vacation time, which is like hot take, but that does need to happen, or else people are just going to burn out because you see terrible things.
Yeah.
And like you care about these kids. But my fear is that we would end up with the people that I was always going to toe to toe with in foster care who won't do their jobs.
Mhm.
Or this is actually my pet peeve, is I would ask them about something because they were my point of contact,
Mhm.
and they would be like, "That's not my job." And it's like, "Okay, so that's super great that that's not your job. Can you tell me whose job it is so I can message them, or can you message them for me?"
Wow.
And so my
And you're in foster care. You're needing
yes,
something that you can't get for yourself.
yes,
And here you have an adult who's paid to be
to
in this
do it.
space to serve vulnerable children that are in this space, and they're saying this isn't my
This is
job.
not my job. And actually,
Wow.
one of the people who I have the most beef with, two of them got promoted within DCS, and they are notorious for, like, even as I've transitioned into extension of foster care, so like independent living,
Mhm.
there's still stuff I still have to be involved with DCS if I
Mhm.
want a stipend, which is like,
Sure.
now that I get it, super helpful.
Right.
It's super helpful because I don't have to pay for my car insurance.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm a legal driver, which
Right.
is great. Um, but my so for foster kids, there's 52 private agencies that place foster kids. So like outside of DCS.
Yeah.
I can't remember how many, but I think most foster kids are placed within those. And so you have a resource worker from them. That is a privately paid person that does not have to do with the state.
Mhm. Right.
And they were the most helpful for me. They were the
Okay.
best points of contact. But the issue is there are some things that those people cannot do
Right.
because they don't work for DCS. So they
Right.
can't get into the government database. So when I aged out, I had a life set worker with youth villages. I still do. Also, shout out to her. Love you, BJ.
There it
But
is.
yeah, she's great. Again, doesn't work for the state of Tennessee.
Yeah.
When I aged out, I didn't have a birth certificate, didn't have any of those documents.
Mhm.
BJ was supposed to be my point of contact, and she didn't do the, like, it's not my job thing. She tried to get it, but she
Sure.
legitimately could not.
Yeah.
And the person who could,
Mhm.
my IL specialist, whatever, she just, like, dropped off the globe for 4 months. Like,
Wow.
legitimately dropped o she had something, like, personal happen in her life, and I do feel for her, but it's like, you can't just, like, mute you're responsible for my life.
Right.
Like,
Whereas if
or you could transfer my case to someone
right,
else.
exactly.
But I
It's a
was not
system. Yeah.
transferred. She was on my case. None of us could reach her. And so my issue is those people are being like, there are people who do a really great job, but there are some people who I have personally interacted with who we literally cannot identify. Like, I've talked with my private caseworkers about this. We cannot identify what their job is,
Mhm.
but they are being paid, first of all, more than people who have boots on the ground.
Yeah.
But like, and they're being promoted when they don't do their job. And so with more money, which is what I think we need for more caseworkers,
Mhm.
we also need more oversight,
Yeah.
because I do think actually part of the reason that DCS has not fought for more resources is that once we have more resources and the system isn't just in a state of chaos, like there was a report released, I think a year or two ago, where it was like, we are literally on the brink of collapse. Like
Mm.
DCS is on the brink of collapse. And once we're out of that chaos, that means we, one, have to deal with the damage that has been done to
Right.
these children. And two, we have to weed out the people who are legitimately perpetuating harm on purpose, you know?
Wow.
And I think we're a little bit, we're not ready for that conversation, but I think that we are entering an age where we, the children, are ready to have that conversation, and we are going to push it forward. So that's what we're seeing with the lawsuit. That's what we're seeing with the Foster Youth Bill of Rights being passed. That's what we're seeing just things are changing, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And I do desperately want DCS to get more resources.
Yeah.
But that also means we're going to have to reckon with the fact that if they have more resources, then there's not the excuse of we're under resourced
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
So,
And getting the right people, like you said earlier.
yes.
Yeah. I love that you said that there's kind of a pivot happening where you're having young kiddos like yourself, 18, 19 leaders that have been through more than probably most adults in a lot of ways, and yet are coming out as and saying, "Hey, we're we're not okay, and we're going to take our voice and we're going to move it forward." And I think there's one thing when you have, like, me being in this space, I'm constantly ringing the bell and advocating for the space, and I wish I could say that I think people are like, "Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
that's sad."
And then they just move on.
They
It's
move
like
on.
roadkill.
And
It's
I
just like, oh,
understand,
that
like,
that sucks.
sure, and everyone has their own families and they have a lot going on in their life, and I understand that. I also don't think that they realize how integrated this population of kids
Yes.
are into
Speak on it.
society
Yes.
and into their kids. Perfect example, we did a foster family night out, okay? We'd had all these kiddos come from various different parts of Tennessee, put on this big thing to give foster parents a break, and we just loved on these kids. So, kiddos showed up, was in foster care, about 15 years old. He's hanging out, doing his thing. He's really upset. He did not want to be there. So I kind of buddied up with him and just kind of hung out with him. Super sweet kid. We had a connection. And he told me where he went to school, told me his age. Well, I asked him, I was like, weird question. Do you know my son? And I shared my son's name. I was, Ben? And he goes, "Yeah, Ben Widrick." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, I know Ben." And I said, "Ben's going to be here in like 5 minutes." And so Ben showed up, and Ben's eyes his eyes were so wide. He had no idea. He goes to lunch with his friend every single day. He never knew he was in
Foster
multiple
care.
placements, and here he's in this foster home. And I could just see Ben after we packed up the night we were done. I mean, he was like, "Man, I feel I don't know how I feel right now. I just feel sad." And I said, "Well, buddy," I said, "One, number one, don't bring it up." I
Yeah.
said, "That's his life. It's private. And he probably was a little embarrassed that now." I said, "And two, I said, this is just a great way for you to know how to pray for him,
Mm.
and then also just to be a support as a friend, because he's gonna
Right.
need that."
And it's yeah, but I completely agree. People don't realize how many of us there are. They
Yes.
think like it's just they are aware that this is an issue, but
Yep.
I mean, most of the people that are the supportive adults I have in my life, they at least think I'm the first like foster student they've had or foster kid that they're and honestly that could be true. I'm pretty open about it just because I want people
Yeah.
to see that because there was a think tank that kind of put out this rhetoric of this like super predator rhetoric, like very old fashioned, but it was basically just like um most foster kids should have been in the juvenile justice system.
Oh wow.
And like I I would say that there is still a little bit of stigma about like, okay, but why are you in foster care? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Right.
so I'm very open about it because I want people to look at me and know that I'm not an anomaly. Like
Mhm.
foster kids have dreams, foster kids,
Yeah.
there's stuff we want to do. Like we are
Absolutely.
normal children, but you might not know. And so my and also am very glad you made the point about just like people have so much stuff going on in their normal lives.
Hmm.
And realistically, the community, like not everyone in the community can foster kids.
Hmm.
And I say that while also saying that you just because you cannot foster a child does not mean you can remove yourself from the responsibility the community has collectively towards these children.
Wow.
And so I think,
It's a mic drop right there.
yeah, I mean, like, really,
Oh,
when
it's so
you
good,
enter
man. I love how you said
here,
that.
like, on my documents, it said Tennessee was my legal guardian. So what does that mean? That's the
Mhm.
people of Tennessee. That's who that is. Because the state can't be my parent. And foster parents, they try, but they can't do everything. My foster mom was a single mom with lots of kids. And so instead of identifying what you can't do, let's reframe that. What can you do? Can you organize with your community, whether that's your church, your job, your local library to do a book drive for these kids, to do a natural hair products drive. You don't have to, if you are bad with kids, you don't have to work with little kids. What if you tutor high school students in foster care? If you have a good paying job that needs a degree, mentor or offer an internship to a foster student. Less than 4% of foster kids obtain a post-secondary education, which is an associate's degree or higher, or even vocational school.
Right.
So look at what you can do. Become an educational surrogate from it for your local school district. I do that. It is less than an hour of a time commitment per month. Like some months I literally don't have to do anything for that, but you help a foster student who needs IEP services. They need to have a volunteer from the community sign off on an IEP plan or they cannot get those services, which means some of them literally cannot learn.
Wow.
So look at what you can do. Let's identify how we support these children if you can't foster.
Yeah.
Because they're everywhere. You probably do know a foster kid. My foster siblings, their friends, I don't think they know that they're in foster care. It was a little bit more obvious
Sure.
for me because my foster mom is Black and I'm white. So it was like that was more obvious when you would see us together.
Sure.
But like literally their friends have no idea.
Wow.
And that's great. But it's just like, I want people to see that we are just like other kids. Like my foster siblings are little kids with wiggly teeth who pretend that they forgot to wear their helmet when they go biking because they don't want to wear it because it'll mess up their hair.
Right.
They are normal children.
That's right.
And we should support them like they are our children because they are. They're the children of the community of Tennessee.
Yes. Man, I love that. That is so inspirational. The way that you unpack that is so beautiful and also just so, I think there is a responsibility there and you're absolutely right. And, we have dropped the ball on that. And like you said, the children are paying the price for that. And, you're also right in saying, DCS can't do it all. I mean, it is built on the fact that the community will open up their home.
And so we have to have both.
Yeah.
Like at the same time as I'm saying DCS needs to do better, I am saying Tennessee needs to do better.
Yeah.
There are so many opportunities for us to like you said, that event. I love the concept of that event, like giving foster families a break, but also that gives foster kids a chance to be in community.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly important.
Yeah.
But just like we need to start looking at like what we do moving forward. So I'm this very early stages, but like something that was really important for me was the internship that I had in high school that I still have.
Yeah.
It showed me what I want to do with my life, but
Yeah.
also it gave me supportive adults who don't just, most adults in my life get a paper and it has all my trauma and everything I've been through. And then that's the first thing they know about me. But I didn't have that at my internship. And that was same for my teachers. They didn't know that about me. And so I got to be myself outside of those labels.
Right.
But I my internship was so important to me and pushed me to go to college. And so I really want to tackle that statistic of like youth aging out, not going to college.
Yeah.
And so hopefully creating a system where youth are assigned mentors in like their local school district in their chosen career. And then they're coached through the college application process. Because that's something else, like as a community, we should be helping foster kids with. Because that is so confusing. FAFSA sucks. The application process, terrible. Like, and I don't know what I'm doing, but most people have parents telling them. So,
right.
It's stuff like that. We just need to figure out how to take responsibility in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we're also going to see the benefits because kids who are like, we have so many kids who go unsupported in foster care, and then there is a foster care to prison pipeline. 1 in 5 people in the American prison system, so who have been convicted of a crime, were in foster care.
Yeah.
And that is like, I mean, that's an insane statistic, but it's like, how do we change that?
Right.
How do we help these kids to become productive members of society? That starts with us.
Yeah. So good. Wow. Turning the corner before we
Yeah.
close, tell us really quick, hey, what's the dream for Ella? Where are you what are you working towards as we close it out here?
Okay. So top 3 goals.
Yeah.
I want to so I'm going to college this year, but I eventually want to go to like to law school, but like I want to go to a good law school.
Yeah, get it.
So, got to keep those grades up and
That's
whatever,
right.
but
That's
that's my
right.
goal because whatever school I find myself at,
Mm,
so first I'll be at Belmont, but then
mm,
wherever I go next, my goal is to create a pathway for other foster kids to get there, so I want to work closely with the administration
mhm.
wherever I'm at
Yeah,
to create foster-friendly campuses, and
that's
pave
great.
the way for other kids to go there, and see themselves there.
Yeah,
So,
it's great.
just like that, my fun goal is I do eventually wanna do a TED Talk. That's like
All right.
that's just
Yes.
like my, like, fun little, like, out there dream, and then, I mean, I wanna be a foster mom. Yeah.
Wow,
So,
man, that is so cool.
thank you.
And for those of you who are listening, if you're in the Tennessee area, we will have a event September 26th. That's our flagship event for the nonprofit that I run called the Bridge House, and Ella is going to be speaking at that as our keynote speaker. We're very very excited to hear her unpack her talk, and you won't want to miss it. It is so good, and she gave us a couple little snippets here of what she's going to be talking about. But yeah, best is yet to come on that for sure.
Thank
Well,
you.
girl, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. I think all of us leave here with uh, a sense of urgency. I hope a sense of responsibility as being a Tennessean, having a Tennessee state driver's license. We are the guardians of these kids,
Yes,
and there are kids, whether we know it or not. There's something that I always believe that when truth is exposed, now we're responsible,
yes.
and that goes through for everything in our life. And so you've heard truth, and now there is a responsibility to that truth as well too. And
Amen.
I pray that it encourages you to figure out what that truth is for you, and maybe what God's calling you to do in your local community as we serve these children. So cool.
Awesome,
Thanks
and
so
thank you
much,
for
girl.
your work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Thanks for being on.